James Rodriguez was emptying trash cans on the executive floor of Titanium Industries when he heard crying coming from the women's bathroom. Soft, muffled sobs that someone was trying desperately to hide. He'd worked as a night janitor for 3 years and had learned to mind his own business. Executive problems weren't his problems, but something about those sobs, the desperation in them, made him stop. He knocked gently on the bathroom door and called out to ask if someone needed help. The voice that answered was young, maybe 16 or 17, and terrified. What she told him in the next 10 minutes would expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of the company, destroy careers built on lies, and prove that sometimes the person who sees everything is the one everyone ignores. If you want to see how a janitor making minimum wage took down executives making millions, hit that subscribe button right now. This story will show you that power doesn't always come from the corner office, and sometimes the people at the bottom know more than the people at the top. Turn on notifications because you need to see how this ends. James Rodriguez was 52 years old. He'd worked as a night janitor at Titanium Industries for 3 years, cleaning offices from midnight to 8 a.m. while everyone else slept. Before that, he'd been a high school teacher for 20 years until budget cuts eliminated his position. He had a master's degree in history and spoke 3 languages, but none of that mattered when schools were cutting staff. So he cleaned toilets and emptied trash and mopped floors for $13 an hour. He was invisible. People walked past him like he was furniture. Executives had conversations in front of him about confidential deals, assuming he was too stupid or too unimportant to understand. Women changed clothes in offices while he cleaned, not even acknowledging his presence. He was the help. He didn't count. But James saw everything. He saw the CFO leaving the office of the VP of marketing at 2 a.m., both of them disheveled. He saw the senior analyst crying at her desk after her boss berated her. He saw executives padding expense reports and taking credit for subordinates' work. He saw it all and said nothing because he needed this job. His wife had MS, and her medications cost $3,000 a month, even with insurance. He couldn't afford to lose this paycheck. Tonight was like most nights. James started on the ground floor and worked his way up, emptying trash, cleaning bathrooms, vacuuming offices. By 3 a.m., he'd reached the executive floor, the 20th story where the CEO and senior leadership had their offices. It was usually empty at this hour. Executives didn't work late. They left at 5 and went home to their mansions, while people like James cleaned up after them. But tonight, someone was there. James heard it as soon as he stepped off the elevator. Crying, coming from the women's bathroom near the CEO's office. Soft, heartbroken sobs that someone was trying to muffle. James hesitated. This wasn't his business. People cried in bathrooms all the time. It was a corporate building. Stress, breakups, bad performance reviews, whatever. Not his problem. But something about the sound stopped him. It wasn't the crying of an adult woman dealing with work stress. It was younger, more frightened, the kind of crying that came from real fear, not just a bad day. James set down his cleaning cart and walked to the bathroom door. He knocked gently. "Hello? Are you okay in there? Do you need help?" The crying stopped immediately. Silence. "I'm James, the janitor," he continued. "I heard crying and wanted to make sure you're all right. Do you need me to call someone?" More silence, then a young voice, shaky and scared. "Are you alone?" "Yes, just me. Everyone else went home hours ago." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. It's 3 in the morning. The only people here are security downstairs and me." A long pause, then the bathroom door opened slowly. A teenage girl stood there, maybe 16 or 17, with red eyes and tear-stained cheeks. She was wearing designer clothes, expensive shoes, and carried a leather bag that probably cost more than James made in a month. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and her hands were shaking. James recognized her immediately. Emily Thornton, daughter of Richard Thornton, CEO of Titanium Industries. James had seen her picture on Richard's desk, had seen her visiting the office occasionally, but he'd never seen her like this. Terrified, desperate. "Are you okay?" James asked gently. Emily looked at him like she was trying to decide if she could trust him. "You're the janitor." "I am. You work nights. Every night, midnight to 8. So you see things. Things people don't know you see." It wasn't a question. James nodded slowly. "I see a lot of things." Emily looked down the hallway, then back at James. "Can I trust you?" "That depends on what you need to trust me with." "I need to tell someone what's happening. But if I tell the wrong person, they'll hurt me, or make me disappear, or make everyone think I'm crazy." Her voice cracked. "I don't know who else to tell. Everyone here either works for my father or is too scared of him to help." James felt a chill run down his spine. "What's happening, Emily? How do you know my name?" "I've seen your picture on your father's desk, and I've seen you visit the office." Emily wiped her eyes. "Then you know who my father is. Richard Thornton, CEO, powerful, rich. Everyone respects him. Everyone thinks he's this great businessman, this pillar of the community. But he's not. He's a monster." The words came out like a confession. "And he's not working alone. There are others, executives here. They're stealing from the company, millions of dollars, and they're covering it up by destroying evidence and threatening anyone who asks questions." James's mouth went dry. "That's a serious accusation." "I know. That's why I'm terrified. Because I have proof. And they know I have proof. And they're trying to figure out how to deal with me." "What kind of proof?" Emily reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. "Everything. Emails, financial records, wire transfer receipts, recorded conversations. I've been collecting it for 6 months. Ever since I overheard my father and 3 other executives talking about moving money to offshore accounts." "Why would you do that? Why not just ignore it?" "Because my mother killed herself 2 years ago." Emily's voice was hollow. "Everyone thinks it was an accident, pills and alcohol, but it wasn't. She left me a note. She told me that my father had threatened her, that he'd told her if she divorced him or told anyone about his affairs or his business dealings, he'd make sure she lost everything, make sure she never saw me again. So she killed herself instead." James felt sick. "Emily, I'm so sorry. I've been trying to figure out how to expose him without getting hurt. I thought about going to the police, but half the police department is in my father's pocket. I thought about going to the media, but my father owns part of the local news station. I thought about going to the board of directors, but the board is loyal to him. Everyone's loyal to him because he's rich and powerful and ruthless, and people are scared. So why tell me? Because you're invisible. Nobody pays attention to janitors. You could walk through this office with that USB drive and nobody would think twice. You could get it to someone who could actually do something, a federal investigator, a journalist from outside the city, someone my father doesn't control." James looked at the USB drive. "If what you're saying is true, this is dangerous. People who steal millions of dollars don't just let someone expose them." "I know. That's why I'm crying in a bathroom at 3 in the morning. Because I'm terrified. But I'm more terrified of doing nothing, of letting my father and his friends keep stealing and lying and hurting people. My mother died because of him. How many other lives has he ruined? Why are you even here at 3 a.m.? I followed him tonight. He told me he had late meetings. I didn't believe him. I thought maybe he was meeting a mistress or something. But he came here, to the office, him and 3 others. They went into the conference room and I hid and listened. They were talking about the audit that's happening next month, about how they need to clean up the records, destroy evidence. They mentioned bribing the auditors, and then they mentioned me." James felt his heart rate increase. "What did they say?" "My father said I'd been acting strange lately, asking questions, that he thought I might know something. One of the others, I think it was Robert Chen, the CFO, said they should handle me before I became a problem. My father laughed and said I was just a teenage girl, that nobody would believe me anyway, but he agreed they should keep an eye on me. So they know you're suspicious. They suspect, but they don't know I have proof. Not yet, but they will soon. My father monitors my computer, my phone, everything. I've been careful, but I'm running out of time. That's why I came here tonight, to get this USB drive to someone before they figure out what I've done. James looked at the girl in front of him, 16 years old, terrified, alone, trying to take down her own father because it was the right thing to do. He thought about his wife at home, the medication she needed, the job he couldn't afford to lose, the risks of getting involved in something this dangerous. Then he thought about Emily's mother, about the note she'd left, about dying because she'd been trapped with no way out. Okay, James said, I'll help you, but we need to be smart about this. What do we do? First, you can't act any different around your father. Pretend everything's normal. Can you do that? Emily nodded. Second, I need to know everything that's on this drive. Who's involved, what they've stolen, what evidence you have. It's all documented. Emails between my father and Robert Chen, the CFO, David Morrison, the COO, and Patricia Kane, the head of finance. They've been moving money out of company accounts into shell corporations for 3 years. They've stolen approximately $47 million. James whistled low. $47 million. The audit next month would catch it, except they're planning to bribe the auditors and doctor the records. They've done it before. This isn't the first time. It's just the first time someone collected proof. How did you get all this information? My father works from home sometimes. He thinks I'm just a dumb teenager who doesn't understand business. He leaves his laptop open, takes calls on speaker, leaves documents in his office. I started paying attention, taking pictures, recording conversations, copying files. It took 6 months, but I got everything. James held the USB drive carefully. I know someone, a journalist. She works for the Washington Post, investigative reporting. She's broken stories about corporate fraud before. If I can get this to her, she'll know what to do with it. Will she protect me? She'll do her best. But Emily, you need to understand something. Once this goes public, your life is going to change. Your father will go to prison. Your family's money will be frozen. You'll be in the news. It'll be hard. Harder than watching him destroy lives and get away with it? Emily's voice was fierce. Harder than knowing my mother died because of him? I don't care what happens to me. I care about doing what's right. James nodded slowly. Okay, here's what we do. You go home. Act normal. Don't let on that anything's changed. I'll contact my journalist friend tomorrow. She'll need a few days to verify the information and build a story. During that time, you need to be careful. Don't do anything that would make your father suspicious. What if he comes after me before the story breaks? Do you have somewhere safe you can go? Family? Friends? My aunt, my mother's sister. She lives in Boston. She's hated my father for years. She tried to get custody of me after my mother died, but my father fought it. If things get dangerous, call her. Get on a bus or train. Don't fly. They can track flights. Just disappear for a few days until the story breaks. Emily nodded, wiping her eyes again. Thank you. I don't even know you, and you're risking everything to help me. I'm not risking everything. You are. I'm just doing what any decent person should do. Most people wouldn't. Most people would pretend they didn't hear me crying, or tell me to handle it myself, or go straight to my father and tell him what I said. I'm not most people. James handed her a piece of paper with a phone number. This is my cell. If anything happens, if you feel unsafe, call me. Anytime. Day or night. Emily took the paper and put it in her pocket. She looked at James for a long moment. Why are you doing this? Really? James thought about his answer. Because 20 years ago, I was a teacher. I taught history. I taught kids about people who stood up against injustice even when it was dangerous, about whistleblowers and activists and ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And I always told them that if they saw something wrong, they had a responsibility to speak up. It'd be pretty hypocritical of me to not do the same thing. Emily smiled for the first time, small and sad. You're a good person, James. I'm a janitor who cleans toilets for minimum wage, but I'm trying to be a good person. He held up the USB drive. Now get out of here. Go home. Act normal, and trust me to handle this. Emily nodded and walked toward the elevator. James watched her go, then looked at the USB drive in his hand. $47 million. The CEO and 3 senior executives. A dead woman and her daughter trying to get justice. He'd been invisible for 3 years. Tonight, that was about to change. James finished his shift like normal, cleaned the bathrooms, emptied the trash, vacuumed the offices, but his mind was racing the whole time. At 8 a.m., he clocked out and drove home. His wife, Maria, was still asleep. Her medication made her drowsy. James made coffee and sat at their kitchen table, staring at the USB drive. He had a decision to make. The smart thing would be to forget this ever happened. Give the drive back to Emily and tell her he couldn't help. Keep his head down. Keep his job. Keep the insurance that paid for Maria's medications. But he thought about Emily's mother, about a woman so trapped and terrified that death seemed like the only way out. About a 16-year-old girl trying to take down her own father because nobody else would. James picked up his phone and called Rebecca Torres. He'd known her 10 years ago when they'd both been teachers. She'd left teaching to become a journalist. Now she worked for the Washington Post, covering corporate crime and corruption. They'd stayed in touch over the years, occasional emails and phone calls. Rebecca answered on the third ring. James, it's been months. How are you? I need your help with something big. How big? $47 million in corporate theft big. CEO and senior executives. Dead witnesses. A teenager with evidence and nobody to protect her. There was a pause. Tell me everything. James spent an hour on the phone with Rebecca Torres, explaining everything Emily had told him. Rebecca listened carefully, asking questions, taking notes. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. This is massive, she finally said. If what you're telling me is true, this could be one of the biggest corporate fraud cases this year. But I need to verify everything before we can publish. Can you get me that USB drive? I have it. Emily gave it to me. Overnight it to me. Use a secure courier service. Don't use the regular mail. And James, be careful. People who steal $47 million are dangerous. They won't hesitate to hurt anyone who gets in their way. I know. I'll start digging into titanium industries today. See what public records I can find. Financial statements, board minutes, any previous investigations. I'll also reach out to some contacts I have in federal law enforcement. If this is as big as you say, the FBI will want to be involved. After hanging up with Rebecca, James packaged the USB drive carefully and drove to a courier service across town. He paid extra for expedited secure delivery. The drive would be in Rebecca's hands by tomorrow morning. Then he went home and tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. He kept thinking about Emily, about Richard Thornton finding out what she'd done, about what might happen to her. At midnight, James went back to work. He arrived at Titanium Industries, like always, clocked in, got his cleaning card. But tonight felt different. He knew secrets now. He crossed a line from observer to participant. The executive floor was empty, like always. James cleaned methodically, but his mind was elsewhere, until he found the note. It was on his cleaning cart, a piece of paper that hadn't been there when he'd started. James picked it up with shaking hands. We know what you did. Give back what doesn't belong to you, or face consequences. You have 24 hours. James's blood ran cold. They knew. Somehow they knew he'd taken the USB drive. But how? Had they been watching? Had they seen Emily give it to him? He pulled out his phone and called Emily's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then voicemail. Emily, it's James. Call me as soon as you get this. Don't go home. Don't go anywhere alone. Go to your aunt's house in Boston. Now. They know. James finished his shift in a daze, constantly looking over his shoulder. Every shadow seemed threatening. Every sound made him jump. At 8 a.m., he clocked out and practically ran to his car. His phone rang as he was driving home. Emily. James, what's happening? Your message scared me. They know we have the USB drive. I got a threatening note on my cart tonight. You need to leave. Now. Get to your aunt's house. I can't. My father took my car keys last night. He said my car needed maintenance. But I think he suspects something. He's been watching me. Then take a bus, a train, an Uber, anything. Just get out of that house. I'm scared. I know. But you're brave. You've been brave this whole time. Just a few more days. Rebecca's working on the story. She's contacting the FBI. Your father and his friends are about to be exposed. You just need to stay safe until then. What about you? That note threatened you. I'll be fine. I'm not the one they're really worried about. It's you and what you know. I'm sorry I got you involved in this. Don't be sorry. Be safe. Please. Emily promised to leave that day. James went home and told Maria everything. She listened quietly, her face growing more worried with each detail. James, this is dangerous, she said when he finished. I know. We could lose everything. Your job, our insurance, maybe more. I know, Maria took his hand. But it's the right thing to do. You're not angry? I'm terrified, but I'm also proud of you. That girl needed help, and you helped her. That's who you are. That's who I married. James spent the next 2 days in a state of constant anxiety. He went to work each night, cleaned the offices, watched for threats. The note on his cart wasn't repeated, but he felt eyes on him constantly. Security guards seemed to watch him more closely. Other maintenance workers gave him odd looks. On the 3rd day, Rebecca called. I've verified everything on the drive. It's all real. Emails, financial records, recorded conversations. This is ironclad evidence. I've written the story, and it's being reviewed by our legal team. We're also coordinating with the FBI. They're preparing arrest warrants. When does the story publish? Tomorrow morning, front page of the Post. I've also sent copies of the evidence to the SEC and the Justice Department. By tomorrow afternoon, Richard Thornton and his co-conspirators will be in custody. What about Emily? The FBI wants to talk to her. She'll need to give a statement, but they'll protect her. She's a crucial witness. Without her, this case might not have happened. That night at work, James was cleaning the executive floor when he heard voices. Multiple people. At 4 in the morning. That never happened. James pushed his cart quietly toward the conference room. The door was slightly ajar. He could see inside. Richard Thornton was there, along with Robert Chen, David Morrison, and Patricia Kane, the 4 executives Emily had named. The Post is running a story tomorrow, Richard was saying. His voice was tight with anger. Investigative piece on corporate fraud at Titanium. They have evidence, emails, financial records, everything. How is that possible? Patricia Kane's voice was shrill. We destroyed everything. Apparently not everything. Someone gave them information. Someone inside the company. Who? I don't know, but we need to figure out our response. Legal is preparing a statement denying everything. We're claiming it's a hit piece by a competitor, but if they really have evidence, then we're finished, Robert Chen interrupted. $47 million. Wire transfers to shell companies. Bribed auditors. We're going to prison. Not if we can discredit the story. Not if we can claim the evidence is fabricated. Richard's voice was cold. We have resources, lawyers, friends in high places. We can fight this. What about your daughter? David Morrison asked. You said she'd been acting strange. Do you think? No. Richard's voice was sharp. Emily's a teenager. She doesn't understand business. She couldn't have done this. James felt a surge of satisfaction. Richard had no idea his own daughter had destroyed him. There's also the janitor, Patricia Kane said. That note we left him. Do you think he's involved? A janitor? Richard laughed. What would a janitor know about corporate finances? He's nobody. He probably found something in the trash and got curious. We'll deal with him if necessary, but he's not the real threat. James quietly backed away from the conference room. They still didn't know. They still thought he was just a stupid janitor who didn't matter. The next morning, James didn't go home. He stayed in his car in the parking lot, waiting. At 6 a.m., he pulled up the Washington Post website on his phone. The headline was massive. Titanium Industries executives stole $47 million in elaborate fraud scheme. Below it, Rebecca's byline. And below that, the whole story. Everything Emily had collected. Emails, financial records, quotes from the recorded conversations, the names of everyone involved. The schemes they'd used, the evidence that proved it all. James read the entire article twice. It was thorough, devastating, undeniable. By 7 a.m., the FBI arrived at Titanium Industries headquarters. James watched from his car as federal agents in dark suits walked into the building. 30 minutes later, they walked out with Richard Thornton in handcuffs, then Robert Chen, then David Morrison, then Patricia Kane. All four of them arrested, put in separate FBI vehicles. Employees started arriving for work and stopped in confusion. News vans pulled up. Reporters shouted questions. The story was everywhere. James's phone rang. Emily. Did you see? Her voice was breathless. They arrested him. They arrested all of them. I saw. Are you safe? I'm at my aunt's house in Boston. The FBI called me this morning. They're sending agents to take my statement. They said I did the right thing. They said I'm brave. You are brave, Emily. You always were. I couldn't have done this without you. You believed me when nobody else would. You helped me when you had every reason not to. Thank you, James. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. You were never invisible, Emily. You just needed someone to look. Over the next few weeks, the story dominated the news. Richard Thornton and his co-conspirators were charged with fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, and conspiracy. The evidence Emily had collected was damning. Their lawyers tried to fight, but there was no defense against recorded conversations and financial records. Richard Thornton's assets were frozen. His mansion was seized. His bank accounts emptied. Everything he'd built through theft and fraud was taken away. The board of Titanium Industries voted to remove him as CEO and appoint an interim leader while they searched for a permanent replacement. The company promised to repay the stolen money and implement new oversight procedures. Emily's aunt got emergency custody. Emily would finish high school in Boston, far away from her father and the media circus. She gave victim impact statements that brought prosecutors to tears, testimony about her mother's death, about living in fear, about doing the right thing even when it was terrifying. And James? James became briefly famous, the janitor who brought down a corrupt CEO. News outlets wanted interviews. He declined most of them, but he did agree to one interview with Rebecca Torres for a follow-up piece. Why did you help Emily? Rebecca asked during the interview. You could have walked away, pretended you never heard her crying. Because I used to be a teacher, James said. I taught kids that standing up for what's right matters, that ordinary people can make a difference. I couldn't teach those lessons and then ignore them when it mattered. Do you regret it? The threats? The danger? No. Emily needed help, and I was in a position to help. That's all that matters. The interview ran alongside Rebecca's original story. The piece about the fraud became one of the most read articles in the Post that year. Rebecca won awards for her journalism. Emily was praised for her courage. 3 months after the arrests, something unexpected happened. The interim CEO of Titanium Industries called James. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm Catherine Walsh. I'm currently serving as interim CEO of Titanium Industries. I'd like to meet with you if possible." "About what?" "About a job offer." James met Catherine in her office a week later. It was surreal sitting in the executive suite where he'd once cleaned bathrooms. "Mr. Rodriguez, I've learned about your background," Catherine began. "Master's degree in history, 20 years as a teacher, speaks 3 languages. You're clearly overqualified to be a janitor. The school district cut my position. I needed a job with health insurance. I understand, and I want to offer you something better. We're creating a new position, Director of Ethics and Compliance. Your job would be to oversee our new ethics program, provide training to employees, and serve as a confidential resource for anyone who sees wrongdoing. We want someone who understands the importance of speaking up, someone who's proven they'll do the right thing even when it's hard. I think that's you." James stared at her. "Director? That's an executive position." "It is. Salary starts at $95,000, full benefits, office on this floor. You'd report directly to me and the board." "Why me?" "Because you're the janitor who saw everything and said something when it mattered. You understood that title doesn't determine worth. You proved that character matters more than corner offices. That's exactly the perspective we need." James took the job. His first act as Director of Ethics and Compliance was to increase wages for all janitors and maintenance staff. His second was to implement a whistleblower protection program. His third was to create ethics training for all employees, starting with senior leadership. Emily visited him once, 6 months after the trial. Richard Thornton had been sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. The other executives got similar sentences. Emily was healing, seeing a therapist, planning to study law in college. "I want to help other people like me," she told James. "People who see wrongdoing but don't know how to stop it. People who feel powerless." "You were never powerless," James said. "You just needed someone to believe you. You believed me when nobody else would, when I was just a crying girl in a bathroom. You were never just anything, Emily. You were brave and smart and determined. You always had the power to change things. I just helped you use it." Emily hugged him. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for trusting me." Years later, James still worked at Titanium Industries. The company had rebuilt its reputation, implemented real oversight, created a culture where speaking up was encouraged, not punished. Emily graduated from law school and became a prosecutor specializing in corporate fraud. She cited James as her inspiration, and sometimes late at night, James thought about that moment in the bathroom. The crying girl, the USB drive, the choice to help when it would have been easier to walk away. He'd been invisible for so long. The janitor nobody noticed, the help who didn't count. But that invisibility had given him power. He'd seen everything, and when it mattered, he'd acted. Because sometimes the people at the bottom see the truth, the people at the top try to hide. Sometimes the person emptying trash knows more than the person in the corner office. Sometimes the janitor changes everything. If this story moved you, share it. Share it with someone who feels invisible. Share it with someone who thinks they can't make a difference. Share it with someone who sees wrongdoing and doesn't know whether to speak up. Because this story proves that you don't need power or money or status to do the right thing. You just need courage. And sometimes you need one person who believes you when nobody else will. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're bringing you more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, about janitors who become heroes, about teenagers who take down empires, about the truth that your job title doesn't define your worth. Your character does. Share this video. Tag someone who needs to hear it. And remember, if you see something wrong, Say something, even if your voice shakes, even if nobody else will listen, because sometimes one person speaking up changes everything. The world needs more people like James, more people like Emily, more people who choose courage over comfort. Be that person. Speak up. Stand up. Because you're not invisible. You matter. Your voice matters. And sometimes the people nobody notices are the ones who change the world.